Airports are places of movement, people rushing with their luggage, screens flickering with departure times, voices echoing through loudspeakers announcing last calls. For most, an airport is a passage from one place to another, a routine part of life. But that night, in the middle of all that chaos, a woman stood still. She had her boarding pass in her hand, the destination written clearly in bold letters. Her suitcase was by her side, ready to be wheeled onto the aircraft. Her phone buzzed with reminders. Everything around her screamed go. And yet, she didn't move. She could hear the boarding announcement repeating, "This is the final call for passengers of flight." The line of travelers grew shorter, and one by one, people disappeared into the gate. The doors would soon close. But she stood frozen, her eyes locked not on the gate, but on the entrance behind her. Because she wasn't waiting for the flight. She was waiting for him. Her heart whispered his name with every passing second. Can Yaman. To the world, he was Turkey's most desired actor, a man whose every step was followed by cameras, whose smile could melt entire crowds, whose silence could create headlines. But to her, he was something more personal, something more dangerous. He was the man she couldn't let go of. She had promised herself she would leave that night. That she would move forward, turn the page, start again. The ticket in her hand was supposed to be her freedom. But freedom is meaningless when your heart is chained. And her heart was chained to him. The voices in her mind fought like enemies. Board the plane. Don't be foolish. Don't wait for someone who won't come. But her heart screamed louder, stay. He will come. He has to. Minutes passed. The crowd thinned. The last call echoed again. Still, she stood there. Every second felt heavier, pressing down on her chest. She could almost hear her heartbeat over the noise of the airport. Her palms grew sweaty as she clutched her phone, hoping for a message, a sign, anything. But the screen remained dark. And yet, she didn't move. People around her might have thought she was distracted, or lost, or hesitant. But only she knew the truth, she wasn't hesitating at all. She was choosing. Choosing love over logic. Choosing hope over certainty. Choosing him over herself. Then, with a sharp click, the boarding gate closed. The plane began to roll away from the terminal, its lights glowing in the night. She had missed her flight. But in her mind, she hadn't lost, because she was still waiting for him. It was an act both reckless and deeply romantic. To the outside world, it might sound insane. But in her world, in that fragile, beating heart of hers, it was the only choice she could make. She missed her flight, because she was waiting for Can Yaman. And that night became a secret. A hidden story whispered only among those who knew him best, a story that revealed more about the man behind the fame than any interview ever could. When people speak about waiting, they often make it sound simple. Just wait a few minutes, it will pass. But when you are waiting for someone who carries your heart in his hands, every second becomes a lifetime. That night in the airport, as the flight she was supposed to take disappeared into the night sky, she was still there, her eyes fixed on the entrance. Her body felt heavy, as though her legs were rooted to the floor. Around her, the world kept moving, children laughed, couples hugged, business travelers scrolled through their phones. But for her, time was frozen. Every tick of the clock was a reminder of what she was risking. She wasn't just missing a flight. She was missing opportunities, responsibilities, a life she had promised herself she would begin. And yet, she couldn't walk away. Because deep down, she believed in something greater than reason. She believed in him. She thought about the moments they had shared before, the way he looked at her when the cameras weren't rolling, the softness in his eyes when no one was watching. Can Yaman was not an ordinary man. His presence filled every room, his energy was undeniable. He was a star to millions, but to her, he was simply the one. And when you have met the one, walking away feels impossible. But as the minutes stretched into hours, doubts began to creep into her mind. What if he doesn't come? What if he never planned to? What if I am standing here for nothing? The questions twisted inside her like knives, but still she refused to leave. Because the thought of stepping away, of boarding a different flight into a future without him, hurt more than the thought of waiting forever. Waiting, she realized, was not just about hope, it was about surrender. She surrendered her plans, her logic, her pride. All of it melted away in the hope that he would appear through those glass doors. She told herself, he is worth it. Even if it's just one look, one moment, one chance to know he cared, it will be enough. And this is what made the story so unforgettable. Because it wasn't just a woman at an airport, it was a woman living the universal truth of love, that sometimes we hold on, even when every sign tells us to let go. Some people would call her foolish. Others would call her brave. But to her, in that moment, there was no choice at all. She would wait, because love demanded it. She would miss her flight, because her heart insisted. What she didn't know was that this decision, this act of waiting, would not only define her night, but would also leave a shadow on Can Yaman himself. Because to be waited for, to be loved with such intensity, is not only flattering, it is also a burden. And though she didn't see it then, her waiting was not a silent act. It was a story that would ripple outward, whispered by those who knew, carried like a secret through the years. To understand why she waited, you need to understand who she was waiting for. Because this wasn't just any man. This was Can Yaman. By that time, Can was already more than an actor. He was a phenomenon. His face was on billboards across Europe. In Italy, women screamed his name as if he were a rock star. In Spain, magazines called him El Galán Perfecto. In Turkey, he was both adored and criticized, a man who couldn't walk down the street without 100 phones pointing in his direction. Everywhere he went, attention followed. But what the world didn't see was the man behind the spotlight. The one who carried his own battles in silence. Can's life was not only filled with glamour, it was also weighed down by pressure. Endless scripts, demanding producers, long shoots that stretched into the night. And in the middle of all that chaos, he was also a man searching for something real. And maybe, just maybe, she had been that something real. People close to him whispered about late-night phone calls, secret meetings, stolen moments away from the cameras. They said that whenever she was around, Can seemed different, less guarded, less defensive, more human. He wasn't just the star on the poster, he was a man whose heart softened in her presence. So when she stood in that airport, refusing to leave, it wasn't madness. It was devotion. Because she knew something the rest of the world didn't, that behind the armor of fame, Can Yaman was capable of deep, consuming love. But love is never simple when you belong to millions. For Can, every relationship was a battlefield, fans dissected it, the media twisted it, producers worried it would overshadow his work. Every choice he made was scrutinized. To love him meant to live in the shadows, to sacrifice privacy, to surrender a piece of yourself to the public. Maybe that's why this story was never told openly. Because admitting it would have turned one private night into a scandal across 3 countries. Imagine the headlines, "Woman misses flight for Can Yaman." The media would have exploded. Fans would have divided into camps, some calling it the most romantic gesture of all time, others tearing her apart for being too desperate. And Can? For him, it would have been a nightmare. Because while he lived in the spotlight, his deepest truths were never meant to be consumed by strangers. His silence wasn't coldness, it was protection. Protection of her, protection of himself, protection of something fragile that couldn't survive under the weight of flashing cameras. But silence has a cost. Those who knew him say that whenever the subject of missed chances came up, his mood shifted. He grew distant, as though replaying a memory he could never change. And some believe that memory was this: the night someone chose to wait for him instead of leaving, the night someone missed a flight because her love for him was stronger than her desire for freedom. For Can Yaman, that night was more than a rumor. It was a reminder. A reminder that being loved so fiercely can be both beautiful and terrifying. Because when someone gives up everything for you, the question remains, did you deserve it? Imagine, just for a second, that the story had broken out at the time. Tabloids splashing it across front pages, she missed her flight for Can Yaman. Gossip shows replaying it night after night. Fans dissecting every detail online. Who was she? What did it mean? Why didn't he go after her? Some would have called it the greatest love story of the decade. A woman so deeply in love that she risked her future just to wait for him. A sacrifice that could have been written into one of Can's own dramas. Others, however, would have mocked her, branding her foolish, desperate, or worse. That's how the media works, it builds fairy tales and destroys them in the same breath. And for Can, it would have been even more dangerous. Every journalist would have chased him for answers. Every camera shoved in his face, every microphone demanding, was it true? Who was she? Why didn't you meet her? His silence would have been interpreted 1,000 ways, some flattering, some cruel. The story would no longer belong to him or her. It would belong to the world. Maybe that's why it remained hidden. A secret whispered between insiders, a rumor fans could only speculate about, never confirm. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we never see on the front page. But even though it was never written in headlines, the story lived on. In the memories of those who were there. In the silence of Can's eyes when the topic of regrets came up. In the unanswered questions that still hover, did he know she was waiting? Did he regret not being there? Did he ever reach out after? We may never know. In the end, this was never just about a missed flight. It was about what that missed flight represented. It was about a choice, between certainty and hope, between reason and love. She chose hope. She chose love. She chose him. And Can Yaman? He may never tell us what he truly felt about that night. But sometimes silence is louder than words. His silence leaves us with the sense that yes, it mattered. That somewhere inside, he carries the weight of a woman who loved him enough to stop the world for him. She missed her flight, because she was waiting for him. A single line that sounds like fiction, yet hides a truth more powerful than any script. It is the kind of story that fans dream of, that media would die to print, that lives forever in whispers. Flights can be rescheduled. Lives can move forward. But moments like that, moments when love demands everything, come only once. And once they pass, they never return. That is why this story, Can Yaman's hidden story, still haunts. Because deep down, every one of us wonders, if it were us, would we have boarded the plane, or would we have stayed behind, waiting for him?